God. Brilliant, excellent. Well, welcome back, Lecky. I think
Hey.
is this your third time you've been on with us?
Just my second visit for a
Second.
talk, but yeah.
Okay. Oh, brilliant. Well, it's really good to have you back. We're on cohort 11 at the moment. So yeah, this is our 11th cohort now. I don't know where time's going. And these guys are on week 9. So a few more weeks yet until graduation. But they've been learning all about CRM and email this week. But I thought it'd be really good to get you on again and speak a bit about what you do. I know you do freelance as well, and we've got quite a lot of freelancers on the call, so I'm sure people will be really eager to pick your brains if that's okay.
Oh yeah, that's not a problem.
Yeah,
Amazing.
fantastic.
Okay.
Did you have some slides you wanted to share initially, or
I have, yeah, I've got
talking?
a
It's up to
slide
you.
deck to work through at the beginning.
Perfect.
So I can share that if that's all right.
Yeah, that's great. And then we can open
Um,
up to a Q&A a little later on.
Wicked. All right then.
Brilliant.
So hopefully this is showing for everybody.
Yes, yeah, all
This
good.
this is about as good as it's going to look, unfortunately. But just to introduce myself to everybody, my name's Lecky. I'm a freelance video producer. I've been working in the industry for about 10 years, working in-house for various like tech companies, e-learning companies, things like that. But in the last year, I've been working as a freelancer. So that's been a really eye-opening experience, really enjoyable. And today I was just going to sort of talk about design for video. I'm just aware that you would have already done some social video work, or you would have done work on video on your own. So I don't want to teach you how to suck eggs and go through the whole process of how to like record and edit. I'm just going to assume that everyone's got a production process that they're happy with. And today we're going to look at how to sort of like lay out video and the different elements of it, but looking through the lens of social media, because let's face it, most of the time that we're interacting with video now, it's on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram. So yeah, I'll talk through it. If you want to ask questions, feel free to chime in. And then at the end, hopefully we'll have a good amount of time to talk about like freelance life or video production in general. So I'll get cracking. So I just wanted to start off talking about aspect ratio. So what this essentially is the general canvas size of your video. So you're looking at your Zoom recording now, in the corner yourself. Everyone's in landscape. It's like old school video now. It's the 16:9, and what you're going to see on YouTube, Vimeo, most people's websites. Shifting on, you've got Square, which is predominantly LinkedIn, even though LinkedIn's moving away from it a little bit now, and Twitter. So this is like in-feed video. So if you see somebody post a video and it's there as part of a wider feed of things, generally it's going to be Square or close to it. And finally, you've got vertical video. So 916, which is where the majority of the video market is sort of sitting at the moment, for social media. LinkedIn's just updated its own video playing platform, and there's going to be more social platforms that are introducing it as it gets more and more popular. So it'll be taken over, really. But the way that this relates to actual film, actual video, is you can see a sample frame here. So I like to film in 4K or like Ultra HD, which is pretty close. And it gives you this really big canvas size that then you can start cropping into and playing around with it for various social formats. So we'll typically produce an interview video for a business in this format. And then you can see we can take a HD frame out of the middle of it. We don't have to resize it too much. We can crop it down to about 90%, so it fits completely in the vertical axis there. But generally, it's ready to go. So I've gotten my production process into a point now where I'll typically film everything a little bit wider than I might be comfortable doing, and then crop it down for socials afterwards. If you film with like mobile phones, you can just go straight to vertical. You don't have to mess around. But this way, you can pan across. You can do like a couple of different things. And then finally, just to finish it up, you've got the square format in the middle, which again is just another crop into that frame. It does give you a bit more sort of like flexibility. You can imagine like zooming out, zooming in, moving around the frame as much as you wanted to there. So now we know what we're looking at in terms of like the canvas size. I've got some sort of like safety margin guides for you for social media. Most like TikTok and Instagram, most of the platforms now, they follow the same format. They've got the full screen in video, and then you've got your navigation bar search function at the top. You've got your video title and description at the bottom, and then you've got the user interface on the right-hand side. And it's pretty much cookie cutter. Like you look at Instagram, it's very similar to TikTok, it's very similar to what Facebook's doing. So generally, and this is going to change a little bit depending on what platform you edit with. If you're on Premiere Pro, you can set up like exact guides that you can say, we need a line 150 pixels down, and then we're going to just ignore this part of the frame and never put anything inside it because the search bar and navigation is always going to be at the top end. If you're using something like CapCut, you could probably just use your index finger and just put your index finger over the top of your screen. And if you've got text there, move it down a little bit, just as like a, rough and ready guide. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. And then 150 pixels on the right, just to be clear of the navigation bar. And then at the bottom, it needs to be a bit more generous, especially for paid ads. So generally, people just put like 1 or 2 lines in the description. If you're a bit more old school like me, you pretty much write a full essay in there, and it'll just keep moving up until it hits that like 400 pixel barrier. And then if it's a paid ad, the paid ad adds loads more bits of information in there as well. So really what you're left with is this little golden envelope in the middle of the screen, just to the left. So any logos, any call to actions, any text that's like really important to your user experience needs to live inside that. And it's the same with the action. If you've got a product photo and the majority of the products at the bottom of the frame, you need to find a way to sort of like push it up and to make it so it's going to be more visible, just for the situation where that description is going to be taken over. So moving on to some of like the more fun aspects of like filmmaking now. It's still a design consideration. But this is like mise en scène. It's like old school French phrase for like what's in the frame. It comes from like when people put on plays, it's like literally what do you see on the stage? What do you see in the camera shot? And that can be anything that you put in there. So I've just put like a couple of like frames from some of my favorite movies in there just to illustrate what's going on. But generally, what you're looking at is trying to put some thought into your props, costumes, if you've got any, or if you're using a presenter, what's your presenter wearing? What's the scene that they're in? Is it in their office environment? And I'll apologize now for being super corporate because that's I work mainly for small businesses. But like, are they in the office? Are they in the local park? If they're talking about nature, if you're taking them outside. If they're talking about manufacturing, are they in the factory environment? And it's all about building up these little layers to reinforce the theme and to reinforce the message behind your video. When it's done correctly, it can be really powerful. You can use it obviously to reinforce a brand, so using lots of brand colors within the frame, with costume, with props, or just using logos in the background. You can use it to set a mood, if you're introducing more light into the scene, if you're going to be using things like guns or weapons to make things a bit edgy. So if you think about like some hip-hop videos from the 90s are really good examples. They might be using like really high-end luxury cars to accentuate extravagant lifestyles, or they might be using things that are a bit more readily available to illustrate how like down-to-earth people are. If you look at what's going on in like any subculture at any moment in time, then you can really get a handle on like how these things can really like change the mood, change the video feel and the atmosphere of your video. And again, it's really important going back to like product aspect. If you can reflect how the end user sees themselves in that video, it's more likely they're going to engage with it. They're going to like stop and pay attention. And then finally, you can create drama. So you'll see it quite a bit in like TikTok videos from like comedic creators. You'll see it a lot of the time in like high-end like drama programs. So if you watch something like Breaking Bad, they use what is in the frame around them, what is in the scene to really like ramp up or reduce tension and pull people into the scene. There's a case study now, bringing it back more to like everyday social media. This is an account. It's a girl called Rachel, accountant she. This girl's amazing. I really recommend you spend a bit of time and look through some of her social feeds. What she does brilliantly is everything's pink. She's like she's an accountant, fully qualified. She's got an accountancy firm, but she's also a bit of a girly girl. She's like really living that lifestyle because her target market is she wants more females in the C-suite to be bringing their business to her. So she wears lots of pink. She's all about her fingernails. She's got really cute props, like her keyboard is amazing. And she's always featuring these things. And even though she's got quite a wide variety of what her social videos are about, some of them are accountancy tips, some of them are how to set up like payroll, some of them are like more about just about like going out networking. But all these different elements tie together and bring it back to her so that when you're just skimming through the feed, she stands out like a sore thumb, and you can then choose, like, oh, I'm going to stop and see what Rachel's up to, or fly by. But it's bringing it more into that cognitive process of you scrolling rather than just waiting for something to just grab you. So text, generally looking at social, just try and keep it like short and sweet. Use as many short sentences as you can, even just like one-off words, and just make it bold and punchy. Try and mix up the different of fonts that you use, the different weights of fonts that you use, and the colors. And again, you can bring this back to brand. You can use brand colors. You can use things that run against your brand colors to make them stand out even more. And just have a lot of fun with it. One thing to bear in mind with text is that the more important it is, the sort of longer it needs to stay on the screen for. And a good rule of thumb is to keep your text on screen long enough for it to be read twice. And this is more of like an editing rule, because when you're writing your message in and then putting it into video, it gets baked into your brain. You can't help it. You just know exactly what it says. You don't even have to read it anymore. Your brain is just like, that is what it says. The problem is you think you're reading it. So you'll be like, oh, that's been on for ages. But in actual fact, it's not. You've just repeated it in your mind loads in a very short space of time. So get it set up, keep it on there long enough for you to like read it out aloud twice, and then take it off. Like, really important for things like CTAs, product information, pricing, anything that you think, right, if the viewer has to watch this and take that information away, you need to be implementing this rule. There's going to be a lot of examples where you're just using maybe like words for flavor, like shiny, exciting, fitness. That's fine. You can let it come and go with your heart's desire, but anything important, slow it down. And another good thing to do is to bring someone else into the room after you think you've finished editing and just ask them to watch it, and then just be like, do you remember what that says? Did you read that? And 9 times out of 10, you should be okay, but just don't trust yourself, because I've made that mistake a few times before. This is just like a fun little stat that I've come across, where it's like 75% of mobile users watch videos muted. So it's really important to be using subtitles, to be using like standout, bold text in your videos if you need to be conveying the message. Always back up what you're saying with a nice bit of text here and there, if you can do. This is actually a link as well, which goes away to a full article that you can read. So I'll share the slides with Tor after we're done, and you can
dive into I'll share them out. Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Perfect. Thank you.
No worries. I find it interesting, but if it's boring, just move on. But yeah, text important. And then use text to grab attention and stand out. So like I said, mix it up with your fonts. If you find yourself using fonts, a particular font because you have to for like work quite often, or because a client has asked you to do it, just try and book tradition, find something that'll just creep out of it, and then just explain to them why. And it's very effective. The more you do it, the less it works, but it's just a nice little piece to have in your toolkit. Now moving on to audio. So this is like an interesting one. I'll try not to go into like too deep, but it's just generally like we were talking about with what's in the frame of the mise en scène. Your audio should also be like layered, or you should be looking at your audio as though it's like a sandwich, really. You've got the most important things are going to be the most prevalent near the top, and then the less important it is, the quieter it gets and fades into the background, really. And these things might change over the lifespan of the video, so you can play around with it. These can change priority. That's not a problem, but you want to be looking to have some sort of separation so that when the viewer watches your video, they can tell what's going on. They don't have to like fight to hear certain elements. It should all be presented in a way where it's coming to them nicely. So basically make sure that your voiceover is clear, first of all, that things being enunciated well, and that it's loud enough for people to pick it up beyond the music. And then like use sound effects to sort of like refresh your attention. You can use sound effects throughout the entire video. There's no problem with that. It's a really cool tool. But again, sort of the more you use it, the more it fades into the background. And if you just have like a little splash of sound here and there, it can really bring people back in, especially if you're using like weird stuff that you don't necessarily hear all the time, like a car alarm, a siren, like a clap, cymbal clash, those sorts of things. Like it doesn't matter what it is really. Generally, if you hear something weird in the room, your attention will snap to it. So we'll try to just recreate that for video. And then ensure that different elements of the sound can be heard independently, like I said before. So we've got a clear differentiation in volume between your voiceover, your audio, and your background music. I've put a little cheat sheet table here. So if I put it down into 2 layers, depending on what apps you're using and what your sort of like level of video editing passion or competency is, really. So your voiceover, generally, if the voiceover is the most important bit, you're selling to somebody, have it peak about -4 decibels or have it like the loudest. You can get audio meters in pretty much every video editing software on laptops. I'm not sure if you can do it on CapCut, but just trust your ears. If it sounds quite loud and clear, go for it. Sound effects, drop them down to about -12, so you've got about 8 decibels separation. Again, if it's a really important sound effect, like have some fun, blast it over everything else. Just try not to do it too often, make it like messy and confused. And then your music, if it's background music, about 18 decibels or lower. But again, it's just a general guideline. If you want to be creative, move around with it, and that's cool. But those are the levels that I find tend to work quite well. It's the sound of the music is still prominent, but then the sound of the voiceover is still quite clear above it. And then a little delve into the issue of copyright. So copyright's difficult this day and age. It used to be really clear cut because it was like YouTube would enforce a lot of copyright things. And now it's a bit more looser. And generally for organic social, you can get away with quite a lot. It's just when you start using paid ads, or you've got business channels that platforms tend to clamp down a little bit. So just be careful. But some of the basic principles is that if you create a piece of work and then you put it out into the world, it's assumed that you own it, unless you've just built most of that stuff off work somebody else has created. A lot of the times this ownership is waived or licensed out. So when it's waived, what you're looking for is for somebody to create something under the Creative Commons license. So if you think about the YouTube creator library, if you've ever used that, it's a big library of sound effects and music that YouTube has said, here's a load of music we've paid for, you're allowed to use it on your videos wherever. So that's a really good example of Creative Commons, that somebody's created something and said it's fine for you to use. Sometimes they'll like to be credited within that, but you can generally find that out from like the person that's created it. So that's the phrase that you're looking for there, Creative Commons. Licensing is different. License is when somebody allows you to use something for a specific purpose. And generally you pay for the privilege of that. So the way that it used to work was that you'll take some chart music, or you take some like royalty-free music, and then you pay for the CD, or you pay for the one track, and then you can take it away and use it on as many different videos as you like. That sort of model's changed a lot now, and what you're looking at is more like subscription-led content archives and content libraries. So there's some really good royalty-free libraries, different levels of cost. Some of them have like a free offering, like YouTube, for example. You don't have to pay, but not all of it is brilliant. Motion Array allows you to have a few free bits, and then you can pay on like a pay-as-you-go basis, or you can pay for a subscription. But again, these are all linked, but Artlist is what I use for my music. Epidemic sounds really good. And then Envato Elements are great for like images, photos, graphic templates, all those sorts of things. And the licensing means that you can generally use it for your work and for a client as well. So if I create a video for a client using Artlist Music, then that client can then use my videos and their socials and on their website without fear of any sort of like legal action. It's so rare that someone's going to like grab your TikTok and sue you and like actually want cash for the back of it. What generally happens is they'll just remove the music if you're using chart music on like a business video, for example. And then YouTube will sort of has a strike system, so it will sort of put a strike against your account, you get X amount of strikes, and then you just get booted to the platform. It very rarely gets to that point. It's quite fair with the way that it manages it, so that you sometimes have a choice where YouTube will monetize the video for you, or you'll just be like, okay, I'll switch to music out on this one. It's rarely where overnight something catastrophic has happened. But if, as Tor mentioned before, there's quite a lot of freelancers in the chat at the moment in the room. It's just when you're doing work for other people, you want to be able to protect your reputation. Like the last thing you want is for your client to put a video online and then YouTube's turned around and said, oh, we've turned your soundtrack off because it wasn't licensed. You want to be able to say, no, we've licensed it. Trending sounds, chart music, popular clips on business accounts or paid ads. Just try not to use them unless you've got a license for it. I know a lot of businesses probably ignore that, but you're just leaving yourself open to that risk of them taking it away. Oh, hi there, Steffi, you've got a question.
Hi, sorry. Just before I forget my question, I thought it would be a good time to ask you, with Epidemic, for example, or any royalty-free libraries, right? So if I have a membership with them and I create content for a company using one of the tracks, can they still post it with the track on?
They can do, yeah. So what you have to do is when you sign up to loads of royalty-free libraries, you just have to be careful because the T's and C's could change depending on the library, but generally they're very similar. So I use Artlist loads, and Artlist terms are that I can use a track on a video and I can give that to a client. That's fine. What I can't do is package it up as a product and then the client sell that. So as long as money's only changing hands once, the client's paying me to produce a video, I'm putting this music on it, and then they're using it on their socials, whatever, you're fine. And it goes even a bit further, whereas as long as you have the subscription when you create the piece, then they can keep sharing it and using it like long after you've stopped subscribing. So it's from an independent sort of creator's point of view, it's a really good deal. And generally the amount that you have to pay to get a subscription changes quite a lot. Anyway, I've got a fairly basic subscription with Artlist and use it on most of my videos.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. That's perfect because I have a few clients that are asking for videos and I'm scared to use the soundtrack.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair enough. Yeah. Just have a good read through the T's and C's, and if you don't understand it, get a friend to have another look at it and try and work it out, or get in touch with the customer care. They're generally quite helpful.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. Okay then. Hey, videos unavailable. So I just had like a nice little social video. It's a paid ad that I did for Basecamp a while ago. And I've sort of break my own rules slightly, but it just gives you a good idea of what we were doing. So we'll just skip over this as though it didn't happen. And
I can
hopefully it'll
share it
work.
after. I can share it afterwards because I think we've got it on our side, so I can share it with everyone afterwards.
Fair enough.
Oh wait, it looks like
on.
it's loading. I think it's back.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah, I'll give it a go. I think I lost a slide somewhere as well, so that's interesting. So yeah, it's just like a bit of an idea. What? It's all gone Pete Tong. But you could see through that video there was one point where there's a case study, and like the most pertinent points of the case study in the middle of the frame, and then the picture is what's going to get lost in the description. Hi there, you've got another question from Daniel.
Yeah, hi. I was wondering about collecting assets from a company. So if you're freelancing, you're working with a client, do you have a meeting beforehand and you have a list of assets that you want, or do you just say, chuck whatever you have at me and hope for the best?
Yeah, I've got a list as long as your arm about stuff I'd like to get from a client, and then what you get from them varies. It's usually really minimal. So we always ask for their brand guidelines if they've got them, high-res logos if they've got them, ideally in Illustrator files or some other form of vector. And generally, the bigger the client is, the bigger like marketing department they've got, they might have their own graphic designer, and they're quite helpful. They do provide all those things. But if it's a smaller company, you'll get like a really blurry logo, things like that. So sometimes like a Google image search for the company can help, because they've always given stuff when someone does the work for them. Like someone's done brand guidelines with their logo, but they just forget where to put it. But luckily it does exist somewhere on the website. So yeah, ask up ahead. And it's generally like more brand related things that I'm after. Sometimes like photos that I might have on file help out quite a bit. But yeah, it's generally changes quite a bit what you get from them.
Is it cheeky to ask for your list?
No, not at all. Like I said, it changes a lot from like basis to like different times really. But generally the main things that I ask for are the brand colors, the logo, brand guidelines, and any specific fonts, because it's, again, we need to know if there might be any licensing issues. Usually they pay for them. So it just makes your life easier knowing exactly what they want to be working with, and then everything else I'll either source it from Envato or from Artlist or create it myself.
Cool. Cheers.
No problem. Hi there, Leo.
Hi, just a quick before I ask my questions. For those who don't recognize me, because I'm not actually part of this cohort, I'm part of cohort 10. We've graduated last week, so I'm
you snuck in.
Because this is very much of my stream. But guys, you're in for a treat. This course has literally changed my life and it's helped me so much. So yes, do your homework, do your tasks, and you'll love it. Now, thank you, Leki, for the presentation. It was really good, really helpful. My business is also kind of videography, and that I'm based on the East Coast. And I come from a marketing background, like digital marketing for the last kind of 10-ish years, but video has been part of my life since uni, basically. And my question to you, I actually have two questions, if that's all right. I've gone from social media content for my clients and my previous workplace, where I've used an iPhone most days, because although we had a camera, it was so much easier to maneuver and to edit and do all of that for the day-to-day content. Do you still use your like mobile device to create content for yourself or for your clients?
For myself, I do, yeah, but not very often. But I've just like, I feel really comfortable with my camera because I know what I'm doing and how to get more from it. And then I find myself being a bit dissatisfied that like the mobile is a bit too simple sometimes. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't use whatever's best for you, especially when like I'd imagine doing client work, like I'd imagine your fees might be reflective of the equipment that you're using or the speed in which you turn around content. So a lot of the time, what I've noticed is like my clients don't really care what I'm using. It's the results that matter. So as long as you're delivering the results that they're expecting, it's sort of, yeah, you should be absolutely fine. But yeah, I'm trying to use my phone more and get more like reactive bits and pieces. But I'm terrible. I don't create that much content for myself, and I need to sort of take my
I
own
know
medicine, really.
it's easier to make a priority for others, but when it comes to self-promotion, it's for me, there's a blockage there. I need to get over it. And my second question is, so I've recently upgraded my kit for like I said, client work and corporate work. I've even done a wedding at the weekend, which is a completely different universe.
Yeah, congratulations. I did my first wedding last weekend too. It was horrible.
It really is. I mean, I'm debating if that's a choice for me, but because I've been looking in the last few weeks across like YouTube to get more information about what kit is good, what kind of like rig, and what is best to use for different, that can be used in different situations, from a wedding to a corporate event or a video setting or whatever. And I have to say, I felt really intimidated because there's so much option, first of all.
Yeah.
Then it feels like you have to have 20 grand to start in this industry, because there's so many things you can add on. So
Yeah.
obviously I started with what I think it's a good camera, and a gimbal from DJI, which turned out that is not actually working because it's very stiff. It needs to go back and replaced, but never mind that. So I'm keeping it quite simple. But what would you recommend for someone who's starting in and is looking
yeah
yeah
it's hard, isn't it? You sort of hit the nail on your head, where it's like there's so much stuff, and it can be super intimidating, especially when you've not got big budgets. So I was quite lucky. I've been using like Sony equipment for ages, and I'm really comfortable with it. I know a lot of people that use Nikon use Canon, and they feel exactly the same about their kit. There are sort of more budget level alternatives. I think Sony do like a vlogging camera. It's like the ZV-1, and they do a version where you can change lenses as well. So looking at the sort of the lower market of video cameras and photo cameras that do video can help. But one thing that I'd suggest is, rather than looking to purchase equipment, especially if you're not sure how many jobs you're going to get off the back of it, you should maybe explore rental. There's some really good companies out there. So there's a company based online called Hire a Camera. It's hireacamera.com. If you give that a Google, you should find them. And they're remote, so you basically order what you want online, and then they'll courier it to you. The downside is that it can be quite expensive. Like, so you might be paying like, £150 each time you want to use this camera kit, or £200. But the plus side means that you can just have a bit of a play with it beforehand, and then work out what it is that you like, what you don't like. You can try a few different cameras and then send them back. Another thing that you could try as well is look at camera shops like Wex. So Wex have a really good shop in Manchester, and they might have one around the Newcastle area. And generally they'll have like events where you can go along and like have a look at a few different cameras and try a few and talk to people that work with loads of different cameras, and then might be able to recommend stuff for you. So those could be good options as well, rather than just feeling that you have to buy everything outright straight away. Just try before you buy, and especially if you're not sure exactly what you're looking for, if it's like weight over functionality, those sorts of considerations.
No, that's really handy. I have got a camera. It's a Lumix S5 Mark II X. So
Cool. Yeah.
It's one of the budget ones, but I'm actually quite impressed by it, especially in the low light setting. It's quite good.
Yeah.
But
Don't be afraid to use that on like professional jobs as well. Like I said, a lot of my clients couldn't even tell me what a camera should look like. They're trusting you, they're paying you to turn up with the expertise to get the most out of what you've got to offer. So yeah, like just use that camera until you think actually this isn't performing the way I need it to anymore, and I need to upgrade. And that could be, if you like the way it performs and you're impressed with the way it performs, maybe look at like a used JH5 or a used JH6, you know, just staying within that ecosystem, but stepping up a little bit.
Yeah, that's really good. Can I quickly, just one more question? In terms of the, do you use any gimbal? Would you recommend using that, or would you? What would you?
Yeah, I would. I'd probably spend a bit of time trying to shoot handheld. You can get some, like, they call these small rigs, and it's like a little metal frame that you can put a handle onto and try shooting
Yeah.
handheld just to see how it works for you. Gimbals are great. I've used them in the past, like exclusively, and you can get those like really cinematic sort of like trail through shots and stuff. But if you're not doing big long shots where with lots of movement, you just have the little bits of movement or moving the camera around quite quickly to reframe. Try handheld and see if that works for you, especially with lightweight. Don't feel like you have to spend 600 to 800 pounds on a gimbal because people are expecting one. Just have a play, and you can hire them as well. So
I have, but it's like I say, it's going back to DJI because it's just to use, which I hear it's a common thing with them when they're a little bit stiff. But thank you so much. That was very
problem.
helpful.
My pleasure. I'm just going to stop my share for a second so I can see people's faces a little bit better. Daniel, have you got another question for me?
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. It's fine. It's fine.
I'm a podcast producer, and I do a lot of repurposing content. Personally, I like to do it myself because I know it's going to be of a certain level, but it is quite time consuming. So I just wanted to get your opinion on program like AI tools such as Opus Clips, which repurpose content, and it's meant to take the most engaging content. And I don't know, I just feel like it's not that great, but at the same time, I haven't got enough time to be making 10 clips per episode or whatever it is I need.
Yeah, I get you completely. I agree. Opus Clips isn't great. It tends to do a really good job for the subtitling, but then finding the most relevant content, it can sort of fall short a little bit. So what I used to do is create shorter videos and then feed that to Opus and just make it do the fancy subtitling work. And then on the other side of that, it can be really helpful where you just use it to try and point out which bits might have the most appeal, because it does its machine learning to sort of like Google, see what's trending on Google and stuff to see what might have broader appeal, I should say. So that could be a way to use it, is to just, as a little bit of a flag of, oh, what's that talking about? Or
like an assistant rather than the actual.
Yeah, exactly. And then in terms of editing, I used to use a AI plugin for Premiere that used to do the multi-camera edits for you, and that did save time. That used to save a good like 90 minutes of edit on a half-hour program. So
expensive, isn't it?
it is, yeah, it was. Yeah, I think that's why I stopped using it. But yeah, it can be difficult. ChatGPT 4 accepts video now. So you could upload it as a unlisted YouTube video, or just upload it directly to ChatGPT, feed it the link and ask it which time codes are the most relevant to share on social media, and see what results you get from that. If you're still looking to sort of speed up the process, that could be a good way of exploring it.
Does that take video that's over an hour in length, or?
I think it does, yeah, especially if it's hosted elsewhere. But it's worth having a look at, and then try other transcription services as well. Just see what they do for you, if they do a bit of a better job. They're all much of a muchness when it comes to AI, but some are better than others. So just keep experimenting, really.
Cool. Cheers.
No problem. It's all good. Pinar, sorry to keep you waiting there. I hope I've got your name right.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks. So when it comes to recording sound through, I'm no way a videographer to your level. I capture content for social media on my phone for clients.
Cool.
But I want to kind of up my game when it comes to sound. I mean, I'm creating reels and stuff, so there's not much sound, but I do want to. And it's a campaign that I'm working on. I want to record sound, but how do I one, I'm in an environment, generally when we're in an environment where it's not silent, or like what microphones do you recommend if I'm capturing on just iPhone? And yeah, but also, yeah, that's kind of, yeah. Kind of what would
Okay,
you
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a really cool product called it's the Rode Smart Lav. And you'll need for iPhone, you'll need a little headphone adapter to lightning cable or USB-C. And they work really well. What you will need to do with it though is to like find a quiet spot or start getting creative in terms of like, I'm going to lock myself in the stationery cupboard or nip out to the car park and sit in my car for 20 minutes while I record this voiceover, whatever it is that you're recording. And just using little tricks like that to try and create a quieter environment for you to record in. The more expensive your car, the better it will sound. But I wouldn't, yeah, I wouldn't, especially in the early days, I wouldn't sort of stress out too much about having the perfect environment to record extra sound. The fact that you're doing it is going to be that little 1% that will push you up against your previous content and hopefully competitors.
Yeah.
And then when you get more comfortable with the process, you can make it bigger and better using better equipment or better processes.
What if it's more like it's not me speaking on the video, it's like I would be asking questions to someone answering. So again, you would recommend Rode. Is there anything like I've looked at Rode, but they're quite, I know they're not big, but they're very visual. Is there anything? They
are, yeah.
Discreet? It's not really.
Yeah, so with the Rode wireless Go system, which those little tiles, aren't they? Is that what you're talking about? And the DJI ones, yeah. So what you can do, like for anywhere between £30 to £50, you just put it into an external microphone. So at the top of the mic unit, the big horrible looking black thing you don't like, there's a little jack port. You plug a new microphone into there on a little wire, and you can hide that under your blouse, under your top. What Rode also do is they have a handle. So you plug the mic unit into the handle and put a foam over the top of it. It just looks like a handheld mic. So if you're doing vox pops where you're saying you're interviewing people in a conference, that'll actually look quite good. And lots of people use it. Rachel, accountant, that I mentioned before, she uses that, but with a special pink foam cover.
Okay, I've always wondered, how are people capturing not so much ASMR, but you know, when they're kind of like, I don't know, when they're tapping their fingers or something,
Yeah.
How are they exaggerating that sound? Are they filming with a mic? Is it brought out in post? Like, yeah, I've always wondered how they're capturing that.
A bit of both. They'll have like a super directional microphone. So like different microphones have different characteristics. So the microphone would just describe to you then, it's like, we call it omnidirectional. So it's like you clip onto yourself, it picks up sound pretty much all around you. Closer, the louder it is. You get directional microphones where they basically just pick up what you point at them, which is how the ASMR people get that really isolated, crisp sound. And then they'll just use like sort of a couple of filters over the top to actually make that sound more like, have more presence to it. So it's got more tonally, it sounds more pleasing. So it's different tools for different jobs. But generally, depending on what you're after, you should be able to find kit that's not too expensive. The less you pay, generally, the more work you've got to do in post-production, and you'll never quite be clean. But that's just a trade-off between, but for tight budgets, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
Brilliant.
I've noticed
yeah, there's some questions in the chat. Do you want me to just run through them, Lecky? That's
please.
The quickest way of doing it. Yeah, there's quite a few actually. I've been answering what I can, but yeah, there's probably some which need to come your way. So one from Erin saying, I was once told to shorten the time text. Shorten the time text is on the screen so people play it a couple of times. So it gets more watches. Is that good advice?
No, that's probably that used to be good advice way back when, but unfortunately now the major metric for video performance is audience retention. And audience retention is basically the percentage of people that watch the video from the start to the finish. Right. So if you're looking at your YouTube analytics, there'll be like a little graph and it'll say like 40%, 50%, 30%. And that's telling you how much of your audience stayed on in that moment in time. And it's always like a declining graph. So what you want is for that number to be as high as possible for as long as possible. A way to gain that is to create shorter content, but then it's got to be super to the point. So if you're cutting down the amount of time text is on, hoping that they'll go back and rewind, you'll get like a positive retention number, which is like 140%, for example, which means people have rewound. And that signals to YouTube, we're probably not making a lot of sense here. So instead of pushing your video up in the long run, it'll push it down towards the bottom of the pile. So short-term gain, maybe. Long-term, no, unfortunately.
Okay, no, that's good to know. Thank you. I know you mentioned good microphone earlier. That was for iPhone. Have you got any suggestions for Android users, or would it be
what's pretty much the same? It seems to play well with both of them. It just depends how much of the settings your phone allows you to play with. Usually under the settings there's like an advanced tab, and that's when all the really nice stuff about which microphone you're using unlocks. So Rode Wireless Go-To is a really good set for using with both Android and an iPhone, and so is the DJI wireless microphone kits. I use those ones on my camera and on my iPhone as well. But you can also get just microphone modules. If you're doing a lot of selfie mode to your own camera and you don't need a second mic, you can save like 150 quid just by getting a special microphone that will clip straight into your phone. You just need to be careful on the descriptions on Amazon or whatever website you're looking at that it says that it does support iPhone, because the way the electronics work changes a little bit. So that's the main case to worry about, is when you plug in microphones directly to the phone, just double check in the description.
It supports that phone,
exactly.
Brilliant. They've got a question from Laura. It says there's a lot of people with visual impairments that are moving to using YouTube Shorts instead of TikTok, as it offers little more in the way of accessibility. Not sure on which features. Would need to look at that. It's more of an interesting fact. So less of a question, but more of a fact from Laura there.
It's fair enough. I really like YouTube Shorts. And it feels a bit less like I'm getting sucked into a weird void of time than when I'm using TikTok. Facebook's the worst one. Yeah, Facebook by far is the most awful experience. But yeah, each one has the pros and cons. And again, create content for that platform. When you create one set of videos for everything, it generally doesn't go down too well across them all.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's good advice. Brilliant. Peter Howell, I noticed the sound effects a lot on YouTube videos. A sound effect happens when an image, etc., is shown.
Okay. So is that on like a laptop or?
That wasn't a question. That was more just me saying.
It's more of a comment.
Yes, I agree with you. You're right. When I watch
see.
YouTube videos, people do make noises when they show a little picture popping up. It wasn't me asking you a question, just agreeing with you.
It's not a problem.
Imagine, a smiley face emoji at the end.
Brilliant.
all good stuff. I noticed, I can't remember who said it, I noticed someone asking me what camera I used. It's the Sony A7S III. So it's
that was me. Thank you.
Oh, okay, no worries. So it's a Sony A7S III. I've got loads of lovely lenses for it, but it's probably the mid-level of the professional market. So it's nowhere near the high-end cinema style, but it's quite far from the bottom end. But Sony also do, if you're looking around shopping for cameras, Sony also do A7 IV.
Yeah, that's
now,
what I was thinking.
Yeah, and again, they go cheaper. And most camera manufacturers now have about 4 or 5 levels. So they'll have their super basic version, a slightly better one, a low-level professional product, a mid-level professional product, and a high-level professional product. So you can sort of like climb the ladder without having to re-spend too much money each time.
Perfect.
No problem.
Thank you. I got a 60. That is at least
cool.
It's full frame. That's
it's really nice camera.
At least, but I was thinking to upgrade it. So thank you.
No problem. It's such a personal choice that all you can really do is just play around with cameras and speak to people that you're doing good work that you like and find out what they're using and compare that to how you feel about your own kit. Definitely.
Thanks.
All good.
What edit apps or software do you recommend to get you started?
If you've got no budget whatsoever, then use DaVinci Resolve Lite. That works on Windows and on Mac. The downside to it is it's like a professional grade piece of software, and they're hoping that you'll end up buying the studio version that gives you more color tools. So it's quite a steep learning curve to get to use it, but once you do know how to use it, there goes my headphone. Once you do know how to use it, it gets it's really intuitive. If you have the Adobe Creative Cloud, Premiere Pro is really good. I use Premiere Pro day in, day out. I really enjoy it. I just know how it works, but it can be a bit frustrating. Sometimes it crashes and it's got a few little foibles.
Yeah.
And then if you're looking for something that's just super easy to use and you don't want to spend any money, Microsoft Clipchamp, it's the new software that's outdated Windows Movie Maker, and it's a lot better than Movie Maker used to be. And then Microsoft have, and not Microsoft, my goodness, Apple have their own version, but it's not pre-installed on Mac anymore. You have to go into the App Store and just look up like Movie Maker, and you should be able to find Apple's version.
Cool, brilliant.
And then CapCut, if you're on your phone,
Yes.
I think they might be doing a web version as well for PC, so worth exploring.
Brilliant, thank you. Got a question from Emily. How can you go about getting a license for a certain track in a paid ad? There's a song I want to use for my client's ad, but I've no idea where to ask permission from.
If it's chart music, it's quite difficult. It is getting easier. There's a couple of online platforms now where you can go online and search their libraries. And if they've already got a deal with the record label, then you can use it, but it's usually very expensive. What artists do, which is a bit cheeky, is that you can generally, if you search for like Shakira, for example, I don't know why I put Shakira, but you put Shakira in there, and it'll find just like some tracks that sound a bit like some of her popular songs. If it turns out like you don't have the budget to pay for the license, then you can always back up to that sort of thing. But if you Google like chart music licensing, you'll find a couple of like agencies that specialize in it. If you can't find the track you're looking for, then the very long-winded way that we used to have to do it is to basically get in touch with the record label directly. So find out who the publisher of the music is, which you should be able to find through Spotify or like a Google search, and then get in touch through them. They've probably got their own agents, sales agents that you can speak to, and they'll very quickly just tell you how many millions or thousands of pounds you've got to pay them. And a lot of the time it depends on what you're using it for. So make sure that you know exactly if it's going to be on a paid ad or organic social or broadcast.
Brilliant. Okay. I've probably maybe got like 2 or 3 more questions, if that's
sure,
okay.
Yeah.
Is that all right? Brilliant.
Yeah, good.
So a question from Sarah: are you using After Effects for motion graphics, or do you ever outsource it?
No, I use After Effects for motion graphics. I'm probably like semi-competent, so I'm quite happy to do a lot of my own work on that, but I know what I can and can't do, so I don't generally overpitch. But if a client wanted something that was like out of my remit, or they provided reference video for like what you call like pure animation. So what I do is more like text-based and object-based, but if they wanted like characters being illustrated and moved, I'd get an animator in for that one. So if this is your way of like networking, seeing if you like to work together, my email address is on the slide deck. So feel free to send me an email if that's the sort of thing that you're offering. I'll bear in mind.
Brilliant. And then we've got a question from Sarah. How do you soundproof a room at home and wanting to film it live but live near a road and want to block out the sound of the street? That's the first part of the question.
Okay, fair enough. First part of the question. So it's all about like insulate, basically when you're trying to soundproof a room, you're trying to insulate the room. So the same things that you do to make a room warmer are the same things that you do to keep the sound out. Air's a really efficient insulator. So depending on how big your window is, gaffer tape or peg up over your curtains, anything that's available, like a duvet. If you've got a thick duvet, stuff it in there, see how that works. If you've got a blind as well, pull the blind down behind it. If you'll still get some sound coming in, you can never really get rid of it loads. And then another thing that you can do is you can protect the microphone that you're using to record with. If it's, as long as it's not clipped onto you, you could probably, like, you've always got to get a bit DIY, but if you get like a big cardboard box and poke a hole out the back of it, run the cable through the hole, put the mic in the box, and then put a duvet over the box, that should protect it quite a bit. You'll probably be introducing other things like echo at that stage, but those sorts of things can be done. If a lot of it is basically like, just do what you can to get rid of the audio and then move the camera into a position where you're just not going to see the mess you've created. And it can take a lot of effort. What are really good at the moment is there's all sorts of podcast studios popping up, and they offer camera rental, or they'll let you record in there as well. So they generally look very samey, like dark sort of rooms with like loads of foam everywhere, but they're set up for recording audio. So that could be an inexpensive way of getting around it.
Brilliant. Also, have you got any tips for organizing or storing footage on an iPhone? Samantha's just said she's got so many pictures and videos for business. Are there any like tips or tricks?
It's difficult. Of an iPhone, I think it's a bit more tricky still as well, because it's like the operating system's really closed off. Yeah. But one thing that you could do, if you've got a license to a Gmail account, so you've got like Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive, they've got really good apps now where the app helps manage your storage. So what I'll tend to do is I'll set up loads of folders on the cloud drive, and then when I've used my video or my photo online on my phone and I want to keep it, push it into the cloud, into the relevant folder, and then delete it from your device. Just make sure it's not synced, so that when it's deleted off the device, it doesn't delete from the drive as well. But that's probably the best way to do it. And then the advantage of that is you don't have to keep backing up all the old photos when you change your device, or if the device is lost or stolen, you've got the backup there as well. So it sort of, in the long term, it protects you as well from losing it. But in the short term, it helps you organize. So, and you've just got to, like, once you've set up a system, just do your best to stick to it, because the second you're like, oh, I'll do this tomorrow, that's it. You've lost everything just everywhere, and you can't remember which is on the cloud and which is on your device. Yeah,
I think that's really good advice. Thank you, Lucky. And we've just got one more question. What 2 different lenses would you recommend to make the video more interesting? Oh,
that's a cool one. A lot of it depends what sort of lens you've got. A lot of cameras come shipped with, depending on this, like, it's just going to sound really like snobby, I hope it doesn't, but depending on how much you spend on your camera, it will change the focus length of the camera, because basically the manufacturer decides what you're probably going to be using it for. Yeah. So it might be a 24-70 lens, and it might be more of like a 35 to like a 35 with 16 through to like a 50. So find out what lens you've got to begin with, because that focal range makes a big difference. And then if you're doing a lot of interviews and a lot of product sort of photography or a lot of close-ups, an 85mm lens, doesn't matter who makes it, those tend to like look really nice, and that's because they really flatten the objects into the background and then blur the background out. And then on the other end of the scale, a really nice 35mm or a 16mm lens, it could make everything feel like quite a lot wider and a bit punchier. And then sometimes as well, like the lenses that comes with the cameras aren't the best quality. The manufacturers try and squeeze value out of what they're selling you. So just upgrading your standard 24-70 lens to a better version could make a big difference as well. And just like buying cameras, you can rent lenses. And also, I've never bought a lens new. I buy most of my lenses off mbp.com. It's a used lens and camera supplier based online. And there's also Back Market if you're looking at more of buying a new camera. They've got some refurbished things as well. So MPB and Back Market are really good places.
Brilliant. Oh, well,
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you very much, Lucky. That's been brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much for spending time with us today and running through all the many questions that we had. But yeah, it's been really useful session. And I will send over, if you can send me the slide deck, I'll share it with our learners.
Well, that's not a problem. I'll send it right over. Thanks very much, everybody. It's always like really interesting, like doing these discussions, especially the questions at the end.
Yeah.
So I've really enjoyed it. I'm glad that people have found it useful. And if
really
anyone had put questions in the chat, I've not got around to it. If you add me on LinkedIn or send me an email, I'll be happy to answer them.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Same to you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, Lucky.
Thanks so much. That was so good.
Oh, it was, wasn't it? Loads of good questions.
Yeah, so much value there. Thank you so much for
No problem.
bringing him on.
No problem at all. And once I receive, once I've got his pitch deck, I'll share it with you guys. I'll share it on the Slack channel. And for anyone joining who's not in this cohort and from a previous cohort, I will also share it on LinkedIn.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
On our alumni group. Perfect. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your afternoon, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you.
See you later. Bye.
Take care. Bye.